No, I think like I would almost like even like come back to having a conversation with you in like 5-year-old terms, in the sense that like while the world, the video game, while the world, the infrastructure it has with the chain, the social media, text messaging, chat hub, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, like zero and like everything that you guys have, there's literally a component for everything that you guys are building with this, with a bigger vision that I don't think many understand, that vision of what that looks like and why it was built this way. And I think that for me, it's always trying to explain that, like as a 5-year-old, of like, think of Grand Theft Auto, think of like What's Up, and think of Signal, and think of like Slack, and then put it all together. And then on top of that, hey, think of having like, a chain itself being powered by everything. And then at the same time, on this chain, you could trade, you could buy, you could sell, you could do all these things, your assets within the game, the tokens within the game. Man, like for me, it's like, how do I explain all that, right? Because I think as you just had this conversation with me right now, it's like all these things are now, a lot of it are live and a lot of it are in motion. And we're starting to see the success and the build of what we've been waiting for on Wild World, but we're still far away, still at the same time, from the other components of the game that you just mentioned and like where it will be. What is your best explanation to those that are new and trying to
Well,
understand Wild World in a
it
whole?
depends who you're talking to, right? Because if you're talking to a gamer, I mean, it's different than if you're talking to an investor, or if you're talking to somebody in Web3 who's a degen, who's interested in, the economy and how all that stuff works. So there's not really one explanation, because it does touch so many different facets. But for people that are interested in Wilder World, I mean, it's just this sort of, we're building this mass scale open world where, I think GTA would be a good example, but it's it's using a lot of newer technology in terms of, okay, how do you use AI generation to make sure the world is way bigger and way larger scale? How do you use all the latest technology with Unreal to make sure the graphics and the fidelity is on another level? How do you use blockchain to make sure every single object is ownable, and you can actually, control that object, and you can actually make money in the game by competing, by trading, by collecting, by grinding, and all of those different things. So it's just that if you look at like traditional game studios, they're very especially if you have a really great IP. And I don't think I think Grand Theft Auto is going to be amazing, and I don't even want to compare ourselves to Grand Theft Auto. It's just there's not a lot of open world games that have a lot of different facets to it. But the one of the advantages we have in terms of, being independent, not having, not being built by a large studio, is we can just be like, oh, let's make everything an on-chain object in the game. Let's use cutting edge AI for all the NPCs. Let's use procedural generation for everything. Like, we can pursue these really ambitious things that would get shut down in a game studio because they're a little bit too far out there. They're possibly a little bit too risky for a really well-established IP. And so that allows us to really kind of be at the forefront on a lot of those different things. And I think, I don't know, I don't know to the extent they realize, with traditional IP and traditional gaming, you're very constrained in terms of what you can do, both technologically, but then also, like, you don't want to mess up the IP, right? Like, if you've built like a multi-billion-dollar IP, you don't want to take certain risks. Your job is to more just like give the people what they want, what they've been expecting. So we're able to really build for this kind of next gen, essentially. But yeah, it's a massive open world game. And there's all these different game modes. And one of the other things is we're trying to make each game mode as good as it would be as a standalone game. So the racing, we brought in one of the top racing experts in the world who helped build Assetto Corsa, and like, we're now on like the third iteration of our physics engine, and the racing's going to be, really, really good. Like, it'll be like a top racing game. And it's like, we're now doing that with FPS. So I think we don't really know what it looks like when you start to pull all those things together. Most open world games, each of the individual mechanics are not actually that great. The game is fun in its entirety, but each of the mechanics are not great, because that's the trade-off you make when you're building an open world game generally.